This heartfelt story here in South Africa. Good morning to you, Mr. Nematandani. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you and to your viewers out there. Thanks for having me here.
Let's start with the trips. We've seen that a group have just returned from Nigeria. What's the significance of these trips that the families are making back to Nigeria now?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very important exercise that the church is engaging, in particular with the instruction from Senior Pastor Prophet T.B. Joshua, that the families should come in so that as part of a healing and finding a closure, they need to be able to see even the site where the incident happened and to understand exactly what type of a structure is the one that is ultimately come down. And of course, to receive further counseling and for him to have a one-on-one with them, very, very important, because, you know, various family members takes this thing in different ways. And of course, it's part of a program that has started in the country, as you know, since the incident. Members were crisscrossing this country, seeing those members.
We've got some questions from our viewers that we just want to put up and ask you to respond to some of the questions from our viewers on social media. If you can just pop them up on the screen, Jan, I'll have a look at them and we can ask Mr. Nematandani to just respond to some of our viewers' questions. There we have Comrade Bright Longwane, the real Blighty. Where are our bodies is the question that he's asking. And then the second question is, where is T.B. Joshua? When is he coming to South Africa, Mr. Nematandani? But let's first start with the remaining bodies. There's a lot of angst in South Africa. Those families feel that, you know, there's been very little word on the bodies. We understand the difficulty of the process. If you can just maybe answer that first question.
Thank you very much. I must say government has been working around the clock in this respect. As you know, this is government to government. And you know, they've now gone to the second round of DNA testing, and the 11 bodies are still receiving further attention. And we trust that our government will not rest in pushing the Nigerian government to find a closure on this matter. Of course, the Prophet himself indicated that he's neither going to rest or sleep, because he'll continue to pray, because he says, when you pray for a person, that's how you show love.
Let me just finish up with that question. Just tell us about the difficulty that the authorities are having with DNA sampling of these remaining bodies, and then what do you think the chances are of them even being identified?
Look, I'm quite optimistic that they will manage to identify them. I think you have science that has grown this much at this day and age that I do not believe they will fail. It could be some obstacles here and there, and they should be a mechanism to finally come to that. Of course, they do not communicate to us directly. They communicate to government. Yeah. But I'm very hopeful that indeed that is going to happen. The question as to when Senior Prophet
yes, when is that's a question that actually the most asked question on social media by all of our viewers is that T.B. Joshua promised to come to South Africa to speak to the people and to follow up with the families, show good faith and face. And the question is, where is he and why has he not come to South Africa yet?
Well, I must confirm to you that that process is still on. It's a principle of first things first. You've got to understand that those families that are still grieving, and you still have the 11 that hasn't come back home, and for him to be in the country at this point in time would have, of course, not have gone very well. As a chief mourner, he still is mourning, and of course continues to pray for these families. And I must assure you that he made it very clear that he will be coming to this country, and to the viewers out there, rest assured, he is going to come to this country. He has met the families already, and he continues to meet them, and when he comes here again, it will be like a family coming together.
Let's talk about compensation now. There's been talk about compensation for the families that have suffered. How far are you down this process, and what is your expectation with this process?
Thank you very much. What the church is doing is to ensure that they assist the families in terms of basic needs, and of course, very, very important, the dependents, those who are schooling. The church is working around the clock to ensure that school fees are paid, university fees are paid. I must say that process is up and running, and some fees were paid last year. Some registration processes are going on. Some students will be put through some aptitude tests to ensure that if they've gone to a wrong field, maybe they'll have to think twice, because we want to see them succeeding. The idea and the principle is they must never be worse off than they were before.
I want to talk about accountability around the event. We've seen that at various stages, the Prophet TB Joshua has pulled out of the commission that's investigating the incident in Nigeria. Is there going to be a scenario that TB Joshua accounts in front of a commission in Nigeria, in front of the people? And I think the viewers would like to know, is there going to, at any point, being an acceptance of responsibility in a public forum by TB Joshua for what happened?
No doubt about that. Let me indicate that the Prophet has great respect for the law.
Yes.
And when the time comes that he should appear, he will appear. At this point in time, the inquest is not focusing on him, is focusing on the witnesses, and he's not one of the witnesses. And that's why his legal team was very, very clear to say, first things first, deal with those. When you need the Prophet, he will always be ready to go out there. He is very accountable, and he is a person who respects the law at all costs.
Finally, I want to take us back to the first question and then close the interview. You've got another batch of South African families that are going to go to Nigeria to find the kind of closure that you talked about a little bit earlier. Correct. I want to talk about those people that's come back. What has their response been to the trip, the reaction from going to the place, and how they have dealt with the loss and the grieving process?
Thank you very much. I was quite privileged to have gone out there with a group, and we flew together, and you could see these are people who are probably having conflicts in their minds. You could see some of them were not at ease, but on arrival, and of course, taken through first on the 26th, we had what we call a tribute towards the Matthias families, dedicated for that process. And the following day, they had a chance to go for the teaching and, of course, further counseling, and were taken to the site. And that's where we realized that indeed, whatever they were holding in had to come out. Some of them could not take it, of course, as the first instance. But as the explanation went on with engineers on the ground, they began to grow confidence. They went twice to the center. Some of them even went more. And they also had the chance of a one-on-one with the men of God. Surely I can't tell you what happened in the one-on-one. It was between the two. But one thing for sure, they were changed. You could see some of them saying, look, we now understand. We now feel stronger. We're now going to stand, and we now know that this was a controlled demolition rather than a structural defect.
We will have to wait and see for the official report of the Nigerian government, Mr. Nematandani, before we make that statement. However, thank you for joining us today and always being so upfront and willing to come and confront, at times, difficult questions around this building collapse that now happened 4 months ago. Thank you once again for coming.
Much appreciated.
And facing the questions for us, of course. For those of you who've just joined us, 85 South Africans died and a further 26 were injured when a building collapsed at the Synagogue Church of All Nations on September the 12th last year. Let's have a look now at some of your tweets. Donald Masiteng says, SABC Newsroom, question God and he shall deal with you. The battle is about his anointing, not the incident. Get a life, bloody agent, says Donald Masiteng. George Hatcher Senior is talking about AirAsia. The search is underway for the plane's fuselage. Family members want victims' remains to be the search priority. Nasi says CBR has also been found. So we'll know what happens soon enough. And there you have a picture related to the flight recorder being recovered. That's the flight recorder of AirAsia, of course, flight